we are calling black men the enemy. We are hell-bent on making the entire world hear the fact that we don't like these black men. Black men are the enemy. Don't march for them. And again, if black women take that stance, then we can't complain about not being protected. They want the world to know that they don't need these men. They want to prove it. They want to stick up a middle finger to black men. So while we are going around and dividing ourselves further from the men who are the most likely to marry us and the most likely to actually be romantic and give us a ring and help us build, while we are distancing ourselves from those men, meanwhile, white people are organizing ways to maintain power. Here's something that came up recently. I saw this on CNN, CBS, Washington Post. But it's a school of Nazis happening right about now. This report says it's 2,400 subscribers. The one I saw from CNN says it's 3,000. There's 3,000 students, and it's a school of Nazis. And the goal of the school is to ensure that the next generation is raised with the values and the ideals that are consistent with neo-Nazi thought. Here it reads, the school superintendent of Ohio City, where neo-Nazi themed homeschooling curriculum is reportedly being used and widely shared online, says his district vehemently condemns any resources. Says the allegations are egregious, yada, yada, yada. The curriculum made national news in an article published online by Vice News based on a report published last week by the anti-fascist research group Anonymous Comrades Collective. The Vice article claims that a couple from I think it's Wyandotte County created the Dissident Homeschool Channel, a social media outlet that distributes its lesson plans for elementary students to more than 24 subscribers nationwide, CNN reported 3,000. The group began in October 2021. It has openly embraced Nazi ideology and promoted white supremacy while proudly discouraging parents from letting their white children play with other or have any contact with people of any other race. The Vice article reads, admins and members use racist, homophobic, and anti-Semitic slurs without shame and quote Hitler and other Nazi leaders daily in a channel open to the public. The article claims that one of the I think Sandusky parents had written that they were deeply invested in making sure their child becomes a wonderful Nazi. So, while black women are over here talking about how black men are their enemies, and this gender war, this silly gender war is going on, at least online, you got white people over there who are raising up a generation of Nazis to ensure that they maintain power or gain power. So this is what we're dealing with. This is why I'm like, when we go out and say these outlandish things, first, we look like hypocrites, right? Secondly, it's actually really dangerous because, by the way, so like, where are you divesting to? Right? Where are you expanding your options to a group of men who've already shown that they prefer their women? And again, of course, we all know, I have friends, I have family members who dated and married out. I'm not saying this is everybody, but by and large, the dating patterns have shown and still show, the marriage rates have shown and still shown that men are generally more interested in marrying within their own race. And let this be clear too, the people that I know who've dated and married out, it was kind of like a natural thing. They weren't going around with this whole neo-Nazi adjacent self-hatred. It was kind of more like natural. And so they have healthy relationships. But if you're with this whole neo-Nazi adjacent ideology with the black men, and then you're trying to date and marry out, you're really going to be a target. You're really going to be a target, because if you're attracting people based upon hatred, or you're moving based upon that ideals, that unhealed trauma, those unhealed issues, you're not going to attract anything good. Best believe. You're not attracting anything good. So, while black women are saying that black men are enemies, and finding reasons to see their blackness as different than that of black men, and trying to find reasons to isolate themselves from the only men who are the most likely to marry them and deal with them. Meanwhile, white people are going around creating schools to raise up a generation of Nazis. They are funding schools. They're creating curriculum to ensure and invest in the fact that their children become very good Nazis, as it was said or alluded to in this article. So, is this really empowerment? Are we really empowering these women? Are we really putting ourselves first? Because, you know, the whole part about this is all about supposedly Black women putting themselves first, while we simultaneously shoot ourselves in the foot. Isolate ourselves from the men who are the most likely to marry us. And let it be clear, it's like, okay, why not just not end up with a colorist person? Like, these, again, we traffic in extremes, as if all Black men are colorist and then no non-Black men aren't colorist. It's like, that's not reality. Why don't we just actually deal with our own self-hatred? And by the way, if you are attracting people who are self-hating or who make you feel some kind of way, maybe there's something unhealed that you need to deal with within. At a certain point, we have to start to look in the mirror and encourage ourselves to be self-reflective and be honest. But instead, it's easier and popular to judge men. It's easier and popular to just, you know, to promote misandry. That's popular to do. You can get money there, you can get clicks, you can get views. I admit it, you can. But it's going to hurt us in the long run. And in a country that is becoming more increasingly dangerous, or I'll say this, the tensions are rising, racial tensions, economic tensions are rising. In that kind of country, you definitely don't want to be unprotected. And if you align yourself with this kind of toxic rhetoric and you treat the men around you with this blatant level of disrespect or this low level of contempt, as Kevin Samuels mentioned, you're making yourself an easy target. Because as the gentleman mentioned yesterday, as I was talking to him, he said, look, you got men out there who they are targeting Black women who don't have fathers, who don't have men in their lives. Some of these men are targeting them, seeing them as easy victims. And that is dangerous. This is the climate. They're raising, the same time Christian nationalism is on the rise. The same time they're creating schools for neo-Nazis. The same time marriage is on a decline. Other races of men have already made it clear they prefer their women. At the same time that this is happening, Black women are saying that they're the enemies of Black men. We got to stop this stuff. Because even if you don't feel like it's hurting you directly, in the long term, it will. And it already has to a certain extent. We've already seen the ramifications of a few generations of women who feel like they don't need men. We already see that. And if we continue, it becomes worse. And for those of you who say that Black men don't, that's wrong. History alone shows that there is plenty of towns, there are plenty of communities that Black men and Black women built together. Unfortunately, under the system of anti-Blackness, many of them were struck down, many of them were burned down, many of them were done away with. But we can't say that they haven't built. And if you do want to build, if you do want to see a better future, you seeing Black men as your enemy isn't the way to do it. Because if you think white men are gonna come along beside you and help build the Black community, no. Like, history would show you different. So again, this, like, no matter how you spend this whole self-hating idea, this whole self-hating narrative, it's only gonna hurt you in the long run. That's all I'm saying. And I wish some of us would just be honest about it instead of deflecting our self-hatred onto other people. We just admit that we have it ourselves. And yeah, there's some Black men who have it. I ain't gonna sit here and lie, of course. That's a byproduct of being in the system. But let's talk about Black women's self-hatred for a moment. Let's get real about that. Because I think, based upon the evidence, that's the elephant in the room.